You don't want to give the elder the time to change her mind about allowing you to continue your voyage through this world. After all, you had already begun to question why she had let you live this long. But after witnessing Frederick's sudden demise, you aren't prepared to stick around to find out. As Mercy returns her attention to the repetitive harmony released by the dormant link, you take the chance to quickly leave the room, wasting no time as you scamper back in the direction from where you had come. However, as you reach the narrow hallway, you soon realise that your way in, and your considered way out, has now been blocked by thick black thorns. Although the plant life in this world is dead and dried out, it still seems to grow at a rapid pace. You have no idea where to go from here, but creating as much space as possible between you and Mercy is your current goal. And with nowhere else to go, you continue down the long hallway. It feels like a dream. Each step doesn't seem to be taking you any closer to what lies at the end of the passageway. That is until you notice the further you go, the narrower the corridor seems to get, and your back and chest are soon pressed against the walls, causing you to shuffle and squeeze yourself along the remainder of the stretch of walkway. The area is so tight that you struggle to breathe, as you desperately claw your way towards what you hope is at least an open and breathable space. The uncertainty makes the pushing and dragging through the compressed space feel like hours, but you are somewhat pleased when you see the light from the chaser's world as you throw yourself back into it. You gulp down the air you have been deprived of as your eyes dart behind you, praying that the elder hasn't followed you. Thankfully, you are alone once again. The pathway returns to the rubble that you have become familiar with, and as you continue along the incline, you are soon met by a large metal gate. The same intimidating thorns which had blocked your exit have entwined their way up the elegant twists and twirls in the ironwork. The surrounding area is filled with the overgrown and decaying plants, but you can't help thinking that if they were alive and thriving, this once ancient garden would truly be a sight to behold. You reach out towards the barrier, but before your fingertips even graze the gate, you are interrupted by a soft and curious voice.
New around here, are you?
You turn, expecting to be face to face with yet another being, but surprisingly, you are met by no one. Cautiously, you turn back, scouring the area for signs of life, but again you find nothing. The world remains silent for a few seconds until the voice speaks again.
Not many beings make it out of the clutches of the elders.
This time, you realize that the sinister voice isn't in fact coming from around you, but from above you. Peering up slowly, you catch sight of the source. Yet another being from this world. Her eyes are lit with a pinkish hue, barely visible behind her thick dark hair cascading in curls across her face. She sits cross-legged on the high brick archway surrounding the gate. She stares down at you curiously, as if she is expecting a reply. Little does she know you are unable to give one. After a few seconds, she pushes herself up from the stone and plunges to the ground below, landing only a few inches away. She wanders towards you, circling slowly to get a good look.
Shame. Your quick thinking implies you would have shown great potential in the living world.
Don't play with your food, Bianca. You and I both know what'll happen if someone catches us with a link. Kill it and be done with it.
A second being steps out from amongst the foliage. The woman stops and rolls her eyes as her companion speaks. He is a scrawny man who remains in the background as she continues to observe you. It becomes clear very quickly that her tolerance of him is forced, and he seems to know that, but remains in her presence regardless.
Charles, darling, it will be an awfully quiet place if I tear out your tongue. Please, do not force me to carry out that task.
A menacing smirk remains on her face throughout her threats, and widens as she turns her curiosity back to you.
Now, my little rosebud, what has brought you to darken my doorway? You don't look as if you belong here.
Squinting her eyes, she stops suddenly and laughs at the final realization that you are not what you appear to be.
Oh, oh dear, oh dear. Elliot has been at it again, hasn't he? Oh, he really has been a nuisance lately.
You were beginning to wonder why Elliot had even bothered with the illusion, since everyone had saw past it so far, and this chaser was no exception.
You thought after the last time he would have learned his lesson. Bringing lynx into this realm and giving them a hope of returning to the mortal world is a crime against our kind, one of the biggest forms of treason.
As Mercy had mentioned beneath the surface, chasers had one purpose, either to accept or reject lynx. Elliot was going out of his way to disturb the balance and disobey the rules of this world, and everybody seemed to know of his intentions, including the elders. Why was it he was allowed to continue this charade? Was it purely for the entertainment purposes of Mercy and the other elders to watch his failed attempts? Or was there something of a higher power watching out for him?
It'd be a shame to kill you for his mistakes. I have to say, he's gone to great lengths to keep you hidden. I was almost convinced you were a chaser. You might want to work on your disguise. I see hope in your eyes. Chasers know that isn't something worth seeking here. I'm guessing you're looking for Rosaline. There would be no other reason for you to venture into these parts. You have to understand that she doesn't just accept anyone. Risks are much higher for her in this world.
Risking her very existence for a link would be foolish, to say the least.
The woman rolls her eyes again at the response of the young man as she turns to face him.
Don't be so droll, Charles. You're beginning to sound like Frederick. Let the link believe what it wants to believe. It's not our place to tell it otherwise.
She seems to see your expression change, as the guilt of leaving Frederick's empty shell in Mercy's presence makes you shudder. But you know deep down that's what he wanted, to be rid of this world and free from the evil that roams it.
Anyway, we've already said too much. We'll be next if we're not careful. I'm assuming that was Frederick down there. Shame. But I'm afraid that's the price you have to pay for helping or accompanying those trying to help Lynx. I dread to think what's in store for Elliot.
You can tell there is a lot more she could say about this world, but as confident as she appears, even she knows that spilling too much information isn't worth the risk.
This has gone on long enough. Go ahead, Charles.
With pleasure, my darling.
Watching as her associate slowly wanders towards you in a sluggish manner, you step back. However, one step is as far away from him as you can get. Raising his hand, he manages to pull the roots of the decaying plants from the ground beneath you, wrapping your ankles in a tight and unforgiving grasp. Clearly, your initial thought of him being the weaker of the two was wrong. Before you know it, the gap between the pair of you has closed, and his glowing eyes seem to project themselves right into what is left of your empty mind, violating the very few memories of sights and voices from the living world you had managed to retain, before leaving you to the darkness he has left behind.